and take some questions. Maybe you can ask me some questions that will get us further on.
Can you explain why the world is compromising with Islam, why the whole world is doing this?
Can I explain why people sin? Why people are greedy? Why they're selfish? Well, as I said, it's satanic. Satan is behind it. He's the god of this world.
The whole world lies in the wicked one. And he's blinded the minds of those who believe not. It doesn't make sense. You can't explain it any other way. I defy anybody to come up with a rational explanation of anti-Semitism, the hatred of Israel. Look, I've been over there a number of times. I've been in the Arab countries as well as Israel. In the loudspeakers in the streets, the imams in the mosques, on TV, everywhere, it is hatred for Israel. Israel must be destroyed. If I could just, I left my book over there. But anyway, one of my friends who endorsed my book, he's a former Palestinian terrorist. He tells us he was raised in Palestine. He was raised in Bethlehem. He tells us what he was raised on, what they taught him as a child. His nursery rhymes were about flying heads and body parts and murder and dying for Allah. This is what he was raised on, hatred of Israel. They must be destroyed. Now, I've been in Israel a number of times. I've never heard an Israeli vent hatred against the Muslims. They don't say Muslims must be killed, we got to take it over. So you say, how can it be so lopsided? It defies analysis. It's not rational. But there it is, exactly in fulfillment of the Bible prophecy.
Right over here. After Russia, how are they going to incorporate Islam into one world religion?
I think they forgot what you said, brother.
No, that's okay. Go for it.
Well, now we get to something called the pre-trib rapture. In my opinion, this would be a very strong argument. I have arguments from the Bible as well. The Bible teaches it. Our brother, who was it, John, said it could happen at any time, imminency. There is no, in my opinion, there is no event that could possibly unite the world except the rapture. Where did they go? I don't know, 100 million people vanished. I don't know how many. Could be that many Christians in China. Not that many in Canada, I can guarantee you. And,
not in America
and not in Europe. NATO will be intact. But 100 million people, at least, vanished from this planet. Now, you can't even imagine that. Where did they go? Who took them? Why didn't they take me? Are they coming back for me? The only event that could possibly unite this world, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Baptists, Presbyterians, there'd be a lot of them left too. Everybody is united against a common enemy that has absolutely terrorized this earth. I think that's the only thing that could, at that moment, I speak at a lot of prophecy conferences, and I go to the pre-trib seminar every year too, and unfortunately, and I'm sorry about it, they keep fudging now. They used to say, well, the Antichrist, that's going to be the catalyst of this whole thing. Well, it could be months, it could be years, you know, after the rapture, before Antichrist sets up his kingdom. No, it won't work. Nothing else would do it. The rapture will do it. I believe the United Nations is meeting an emergency session. Where did they go? Who took them? What can we do about this? And it's at that moment, Satan's man, he's always had a man ready, Satan's man steps to the fore. He can tell you where they went. I mean, I could give you a number of scenarios. Why? It was, beam me up, Scotty. You know, they were taken by some rogue civilization as slaves onto a slave planet out there. And I know where they went. I'm in contact with a intergalactic council, and I will get them back. You take my number on you, and that will be the pledge that you won't be taken, and I'm going to get the rest of, I mean, give you a lot of scenarios, but nothing would unite. And furthermore, one last thing, and I'm not dogmatic about this, I think the babies have gone. Jesus said, suffer the little children to come unto me, forbid them not. He said, I don't understand this. Maybe you can explain it, brother. But Jesus said of babies, of little children, their angels do always behold the face of my Father in heaven. I don't know what that means, but I think they have a special place. These are innocent. And I don't think he's going to leave them to the tender mercies of the Antichrist. Muslims have lost their babies, their little children. Hindus, Buddhists, everybody. If that's the case, wow. That's going to unite this world in terror, and that's the catalyst for this man to step forward, in my opinion.
This confused word, like you said in your speech, Christians are attacked by Muslim or Islam. From the history, I know that also Christians were fighting against Christians and still fighting in England or all over the places, even here in our congregations, the so-called Christians, by wars or whatever. And now, how to put these things together? President Bush is claiming that God told him to go to fight. The other side is claiming also God told us. I believe that they serve one God, Satan and the devil.
Now, I don't know whether you meant they serve one God. Who's the one? Who serves one God?
Both sides looks like the same.
Muslims?
Muslims and
No.
so-called Christians
No.
are claiming that they serving their God.
Yeah.
But who's that God? It's like
Yeah.
one God, Satan and the devil, because he's blind in their mind.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ said, true Christians never fight.
Right. Okay. I never heard Bush say that God told him to do this, number one. He may claim to be a Christian, but he never said God told him to go in there and to do it, okay? Now, there is a big difference. You said Christians fighting Christians. Christians kill people. The Crusaders were not Christians. Right. They waved the cross. But what the Crusaders did, they did it in disobedience of Christ, disobedience of the Bible, disobedience of the example that Christ set. What the Muslim terrorist does, he does in obedience of the Quran, obedience of Muhammad and Muhammad's example, you see? So there's a big difference. Now, the Muslim would say, yeah, but what about the Jews? They went in there and they wiped out the Canaanites. Well, if you go to chapter 15 I wish I'd had time to get there, chapter 15 of Genesis, God says to Abraham, your seed that is going to inherit this land, they are going to be slaves in a foreign land for 400 years. Who are the slaves? The Jews. He identifies the seed that will inherit. Because, well, but Ishmael was a son, and so was Isaac. They had descendants. Which one is the seed? All right, the seed that will inherit this land, they will be slaves for 400 years in a foreign land. And then I will bring them out. Why does God say they'll be slaves for 400 years? Because the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. God sent the Jews. You get the boundaries of that land. He didn't say take over the world, like Muhammad says. He didn't say convert them with the sword. He said it's like Sodom and Gomorrah. 400 years from now, these Canaanites will be so evil that in my righteousness I'll be forced to wipe them out. And I'm going to use you to do that, and I will give you their land. Okay? Now, how do we know that this was the Jews that did it? How do we know they came out? I love the Bible. It is just fantastic. You cannot escape it. The Passover. Go to Exodus chapter 12. God says, I will give you a sign that you are the people. And he says, in the days to come, when your children ask you, why do we keep this Passover? You tell them, it's because we are descended from the people that God delivered from Egypt, okay? Now, who keeps the Passover today? Jews, not the Arabs, and so forth. And if you're not a Jew, you shouldn't keep the Passover. But anyway, I got a little off the subject, but they're not Christians who did that. Christians don't fight Christians.
Jesus Christ as well.
What?
Jewish people rejected Jesus.
That, of course they did. Of course they did, yes.
Andrew
Yeah.
Barron's going to talk about that next. He's a Jew, so listen to him. Next over here.
Brother Dave, I can assure you that I've been praying for you because I think, I represent Dave. I think that certainly you must be a marked man in some ways. I don't know how many Muslims are, but what I would ask you, you said there should be an outcry. What should I, as an individual Christian, as an individual believer, in a free land, be doing, aside from just praying fervently for Israel and the peace of Jerusalem?
Yeah.
Well, what should I be doing? What should even God in ministry? They're strangely quiet.
Well,
so many ways.
right. Well, you've got World Vision, for example. They're against Israel. Biggest Christian charitable organization in the world. They do nothing for Israel. They speak against Israel and so forth. But what should you and I be doing? It's not easy. I speak out on radio or television when I have the opportunity. I write letters to my newspaper. I'm from a little town of Bend, and I'll tell you how difficult it is. They have published my letters to the editor a number of times, but now when I wrote what I told you about the Danish cartoons, and they've got a whole page in our little newspaper about, oh, now there are courses in universities, the truth about Islam, you know. And I said, wait a minute, they don't tell you the truth about Islam. Let me tell you the truth about Islam. I did it in 250 words, my limit. They would not publish it. So I called the editor. Well, look, I'm an author of about 40 books. They're in 50 languages around the world. And I write a letter, which I think I worded very well, to the newspaper, and you won't publish my letter in your newspaper. It doesn't make sense. He would not explain to me why they wouldn't publish it, because they don't want to say anything against Islam, you see, but it's the truth. So you got a difficult task, but somehow speak out, write to your, I don't know what you call them here, your parliament members or whatever they are. Do everything you can to bring the truth. Please, I'm not trying to sell this book. We sell enough of them, but just get this in your libraries. Get it to whoever your top leaders are. Say, read this book. Now, let the Muslims read it. If there's anything in here that isn't the truth, then the writer will apologize. We'll revise it. But if you can't find any fault with this, then you better change the way you are acting towards Islam, because you're aiding and abetting them in their very thing that they say they're going to do. So, I don't know, do whatever you can. But it's not going to be easy because they're going to be against you.
Okay, a question over here.
Did you know that in the Beniamin church, there are over 100 Iranians that have accepted Christ as their Savior?
I didn't know that. Praise God. There are a lot of Iranians who have come to Christ. That's where I'll be speaking Sunday morning, Bayview Glen Church. And there's been a revival in Iran, and actually in Sudan, because they see what Islam really is. There's an underground church in Afghanistan. I'm in touch with people who are involved over there. In Iraq, they've had to flee Iraq into Syria, the Christians, but there's an underground church there. So many Muslims are coming to Christ, and I have prayed for many years, God, please tear down this Islamic curtain. It's more vicious and impenetrable than the Iron Curtain ever was. I was in Russia a number of times during the Iron Curtain days. Well, they had a Baptist church in Moscow. It was a showpiece. It wasn't genuine exactly, but still. China, they have churches. Islam, no. You can't have one, okay? So I pray, God, tear it down, get the gospel in there for these people, because I love the Muslim people as I love the Jews. They've been lied to. They're terrorized. They wouldn't dare even consider that Islam might be wrong. They'd take your head off for that. Okay, so keep praying and then do what you can to get the truth to people.
Yeah, that Bayview Glen Church, by the way, that's at Bayview and Steeles And first service tomorrow is at 9:15, the second one's at 11.
I won't be talking about this. My first service, my topic is why everything is the way it is. And the second topic is at what cost a bride? What did it cost Christ to get us to heaven?
Who else has a question? Bruce Malone's up there too, folks. If you have a question on the creation issue.
Does everybody know where Cain got his wife? Anybody interested in that, real quick? Okay.
No.
The reason it's a mystery is because we have all been trained to think like evolutionists. Things have always went on pretty much as they are today. Genesis chapter 5 says, in Adam and Eve had other sons and other daughters. Jewish tradition is, I believe they had 39. If our genetic code in the beginning was perfect, started to deteriorate afterwards, we lived very long lives because it took a while for that genetic load to build up. Brothers, sisters, cousins would have had no trouble getting married. Abraham was married to his half-sister. The only reason it's a prohibition is because the genetic load has built up to such a point that at the time of Moses, God instituted the moral law that says you are not to marry close relatives. Before that, it was common in all cultures. It's really no mystery at all, and it's an incredibly strong evidence that our genetic code is deteriorating rapidly.
Over here.
The question is, does Islam pray to the same God as the Christian does?
Well, the Pope says so. John Paul II kissed the Quran. Vatican II says the Muslims worship the same God that the Christians worship. Okay? Now, Bush has boasted, oh, we now have a Quran in the White House. What does the Quran say? The Quran says, you believe in the Trinity, you go straight to hell. 16 times the Quran says, Allah is not a father and he has no son. Now every Arabic translation of the Bible in the world uses Allah for God. Well, let's put Allah into John 3:16. For Allah so loved the world. Well, you got 99 characteristics of Allah in the Quran, not one of them is love. Allah so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. Whoops. Allah is not a father, he has no son. You can't put Allah in the Bible. Okay? Jesus is not God, he's not the Son of God. He didn't die on the cross for our sins. He didn't even die on the cross. He was taken to heaven. Someone died in his place. The Bible says Christ died in our place. No, someone died in his place. He was taken alive to heaven. I could go on. Allah is a... Look, I was speaking in Sydney, Australia, and I said, Allah is... this is not the God of the Bible. This is not the only... They say, well, but there's no other word for God in Arabic. About 5 Arabs came after me. And I said, look, you guys speak Arabic. I don't even speak Arabic. Let me just give you what you must confess to become a Muslim. La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. That's Arabic that says there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet. Now, it doesn't say there's no Allah but Allah. It says there's no ilah but Allah. And you find the generic term for God all through the Quran, ilah. And Allah is a contraction of la ilah, meaning the God, the supreme God. Okay? Allah was named Allah, la ilah, in the Kaaba. It had about 360 idols in it, and Allah was the chief idol. Okay? Now, Muhammad is trying to tell, what did Muhammad change? He didn't change anything. He kept the same name, but he just said there's only one God, and that's Allah. He tried to convert the Christians and the Jews in Mecca, in Medina. Well, in Mecca they threw him out. In Medina, what's he trying to tell them? There's one God. It's Allah. They knew who Allah was. Allah's an idol up there in the Kaaba. Muhammad even went to the Kaaba while there were still these idols encircled around it when he got permission from the Meccans and so forth. This is not the God of the Bible. No possible way you could say this is the God of the Bible, but the Catholics say it. What's his name? Christian Research Institute. Hank Hanegraaff says it. So many people say it. It just isn't true. Sorry, I guess we're done.
I just wanted to know, we're going to have more question and answer period with Dave, but before Bruce Malone
Yeah.
comes back to the stage, does anybody have a question for Bruce?
Here in the front.
Oh, sorry.
I have a paleontologist friend who, when we got to discussing about intelligent design and stuff like that, and I mentioned that book written by Frank Collins, and he said that his comment was that the science behind the so-called intelligent design movement isn't good science. And he said that
Francis Collins.
Sorry?
Yeah.
He said that there are no peer-reviewed articles supporting, their findings or whatever, and I just wanted to speak to that. And also maybe the peer review process as well.
Well, it's very easy for those folks who oppose allowing students to see the evidence for creation to say there's no science backing intelligent design, because they have defined science as excluding any evidence that points to an intelligent designer. If it points to an intelligent designer, it is not science. So they can say there are no scientists and no science that support, create evolution. That's what they mean when they say that. Now, are they looking for the truth? That's the goal. Are they looking for the truth? Are they looking for what is reality, or are they looking for what has actually happened in the past? No, they're looking for what fits the current definition of science. That's what's so important. If you don't understand the debate, if you don't understand where the battle's at, you get into this word game and you don't get anywhere. The point is to point people to search for the truth. What is the truth? What is reality? What is real? What has happened? And I believe the majority of the evidence does that. Now, why aren't there stuff in peer-reviewed magazines? It was similar to a question that was asked earlier. If you see a problem, wouldn't that lead you to be able to get it published in a scientific journal? No, because it is peer-reviewed, and the peers are playing by the rules of the definition of science. So you won't get these kind of things in a peer-reviewed magazine. There are wonderful peer-reviewed technical journals that deal with creation evidence. One other example I just want to follow up with. Well, if you came up with something like this helium that is definitely present in the rock, and it's absolutely no way it could be there if there wasn't rapid radioactive decay, it leads to a very fruitful area of radioactive, radiometric research. Wouldn't that person win a Nobel Prize?
Amen.
Thank you, gentlemen.